Hi guys, so for my first YouTube channel video I'm going to be filming my birth story. My actual channel isn't just going to be about baby things, it's going to be about everything like makeup, just story times, vlogs and everything like that, but I feel like this is something that would be interesting to get it started because my birth story isn't a normal like go into labour, have a baby story. Basically my baby was born 12 weeks early, for those who don't know, like most of my Instagram followers will, because I posted a lot of things on there after he was born and how he was progressing and things. But yeah, he wasn't born at the normal time, he was born 12 weeks early due to me being poorly, and we were basically like not good for each other. So to start it off, I'll just start from the beginning, and then we'll just go from there, and anything I do miss I will leave in like the section below, because there is a lot to remember, like all tests and everything that got done on me and him and everything like that I might forget, but I have wrote things down, so hopefully like I won't forget anything. So it started on the 24th of August, which was a Saturday. All of that week I had quite a bad stomach, like sickness and a weird feeling of being full, and no matter whether I weed or anything like that, nothing ever went away. It was just full. I was full all the time, and I wasn't eating as much either, which I kind of thought was odd because I was 28 weeks, but he wasn't that big. So like obviously as you get towards the end of your pregnancy you feel really large, and because the baby is that big, the pressure on your like ribs and lungs and everything, so you kind of out of breath and you feel full and all that stuff. But to me it wasn't that big. I was only 28 weeks, so it was a bit abnormal. So that day, like I'd started to feel a bit better by Saturday, but I actually checked with somebody I know who is a midwife, and she said that it didn't seem like anything serious, but to go get checked anyway. So that day went on, I was kind of thinking about ringing the hospital and like umming and ahhing because I felt better. And I went up to my grandma's, who hadn't seen me for like a little bit because I'd felt poorly, and that if it was something that wasn't related to the pregnancy and was contagious, I didn't want to pass it on. So she'd not seen me for a little bit, and when I went up she said that I looked really big, like swollen. My face all here was swollen, my neck, my shoulders, I just looked really puffy and swollen. So that kind of prompted me to ring the doctors, because obviously somebody who hasn't seen me for 2 weeks, they've seen like a massive difference in comparison to before. So after that I rang my midwife. I couldn't get hold of her, so I rang the hospital. They told me to come in. They just said it didn't sound anything serious, just to come in, just to be observed, and hopefully I'd have been on my way in a few hours, and that had been that. And it could have just been like, because I had sore feet and everything like that, but obviously that's just pregnancy as well. So I went to the hospital straight away after that, and I got there and they put it's like it's something that goes over your stomach, so it checks yours and the baby's movements and like your heart rate and blood pressure and everything like that. And I was there for like a good few hours, like I'd done a urine sample and everything like that, and they said that the protein in my wee was high, which is like a UTI, but I didn't have that because I didn't have any pain or anything like that. So they kept taking samples. I think they took my blood as well, but that I'm not sure on, and it isn't in my notes, so I'm not sure about that. But I presume they would have took my blood because that's just something that they do as a precaution. So after a few hours, like they were kept me on the monitor. Somebody kept coming in and out to check my movements and my blood pressure and things. And then after a few hours, a nurse came in and was like, "We're really worried about you. We think you've got preeclampsia. Your blood pressure's high, but wasn't high on the scale. It was high for me. So when I first became pregnant, it was just higher than that. So it was unusual for me, but not unusual for a normal person. And they think I got preeclampsia and that I could have to deliver in a couple of days, which from going from just thinking, oh, I'll be in and out in a couple of hours, to going and somebody telling you that you're going to have to deliver your 28-week old baby in maybe a couple of days was really scary. Like, it's something that it just hits you like a wave and you're like, everything goes through your head, and it's like the worst things as well, because obviously at 28 week you don't know whether he would have been old enough to survive and things like that. Obviously he's here now, he's perfect, he's brilliant, but at that time it scares you because neonatal is brilliant, but at that time I didn't know that. So that was scary. So they kept me on the monitor. Somebody came to do a scan. She said he was fine, but it was reduced movement, and also my placenta was at the front, so it kind of blocked any movements as well. So anything I was like feeling, it probably moved more than what I felt, basically, because I couldn't feel it. So after that, they took me onto the ward. They explained a lot of things, like I had a steroid injection. I don't know what it's for, to be honest. I just had it. I think it's obviously to like help if you go into labour or anything like that. I wasn't going to go for a normal labour anyway, because because of the seriousness of the condition that we was both in. It would have put too much strain on us both, and it could have like proved fatal. Like it wasn't the best option. But they moved us onto the ward, where a lot of people came and explained a lot of things to me, like about having a baby that early. They couldn't really tell you much in the sense of survival rate and things like that, because they obviously don't want to say too much to you in case you get your hopes up, or anything like opposite way. You could get your hopes up and something could go wrong, or you could think something's going wrong and something could go brilliant. Like it's just both ways. They can't really tell you like a specific anything. And they basically explained that if they was to give me magnesium sulfate, that the chance of me having my baby in the next couple of days was really high, because that's to prepare you for labour. So a few hours passed again, because my blood pressure came down back to normal, but then that was for like due to tablets rather than it coming down on its own. So once they had basically worn off, it had gone back up again, and it never really stayed down on its own. It was always up. So after like all that had happened, they gave me the magnesium sulfate, which obviously means you're probably gonna go in, like you're gonna have your baby. But due to him being so early, I had to be moved to another hospital, because there was no neonatal beds at the hospital I was at. So basically we was just waiting for the transfer ambulance to go from one hospital to the other. In that time nothing really happened. I was just being monitored for my blood pressure. I had the magnesium sulfate, like I said, which is obviously the worst thing. It makes you really warm, you throw up, but it's only for the time that they're injecting you. That is like the worst thing I've ever had. It was awful. In the ambulance moving, I wasn't really aware of anything, because I'd been awake long and I'd had so many tests and I'd had things put into me and stuff like that. I was just a bit dazed. Like the whole ambulance journey, I was kind of just staring and thinking, like, you just think about everything, because obviously you're gonna probably deliver your baby and it's just scary. Once we got to the other hospital, I got there, and it was kind of like a weird situation, because basically they did test, I think when I was at the other hospital, they did test quite regularly. But at this one, they was doing them every 4 hours, and it was kind of play off the basis of if it got worse, I would have my baby. But it kept getting worse, but it wasn't really worse enough to do anything about it. So they'd keep coming in and telling me, oh, you could deliver your baby at 5 a.m. You could deliver him at 2. Like it was all like play as you go. Like it wasn't really a specific, you are going to have your baby at this time. It was when it got to the point where they couldn't do anything else, and that was that. So pretty much that night was just, I think I got there at about 12 a.m. so it was quite late. So during that night I was just being checked every 4 hours. Like my bloods were being checked, my urine was being checked, my monitor was being checked for my blood pressure and everything like that. And I had to constantly sleep with the monitor that monitored him as well, just to make sure he was okay and he wasn't getting distressed or too, like, it was unsafe for him to be in there. The next day, it was the bank holiday, so it was the 25th of August. There wasn't meant to be any scan nurses in, but luckily one had come in, and I had a scan that morning. I think it was around 11 a.m. I had a scan that morning. Nobody told me anything in the scan. She seemed like everything was normal. But little did I know when I came out the other, like, the big doctors came in and said, like, if we don't deliver your baby within 2 hours, you both could end up dead, basically, because we were just poisoning each other. It weren't safe. So within that hour window, I was prepped for theatre because I had to have an emergency C-section, which in itself is scary because you don't think at the beginning of your pregnancy that's going to happen. Like, you think everything's going to happen naturally, but to know that you're in such a bad way and you're going to now have a surgery that could potentially, like, you could not come out, either of you, it's quite scary. So I was prepped for surgery. Obviously my partner was there, my dad was there. Luckily he'd just come to visit just to make sure everything was okay, but my dad was there as well. So during the time of I was being prepped, he rang my mum to tell her obviously everything what was happening, and then I was just basically put into theatre straight away. There wasn't like I literally got told like 5 minutes. I had to get all my piercings out, everything, and then I just went into theatre. That was it. And they gave me the injection that numbs your back. I can't remember what it's called. It'll come to me in a minute. But it basically numbs you from like here downwards, so you can't obviously feel them doing, like, delivering your baby because it's a C-section, so you are awake. So I was on the table and I remember this really funny nurse because I was really scared about having that injection because I got told it was really like a really long needle. And I remember her saying, just keep looking at me, it doesn't hurt, it's fine. But then because she kept saying it like so often, I was like, are you lying? Like, is it really gonna hurt? And it didn't. Like, it was totally fine. Like, I didn't even know he'd done it. But because obviously somebody's like talking to you constantly, being like, oh, it's alright, look at me, like, I was just more scared, so I was like getting more and more wound up. And I think obviously the shock of having a C-section when you don't think you're going to, and having like a 10-minute warning about it, it's scary because you don't really have chance to ask questions or anything like that, which in one way is fine, but in the other way you're constantly wondering like what's going to happen, what even does happen in a C-section, how does it happen. So I was quite scared, and I think that's the whole process really, like everything to do with my birth. I didn't have chance to ask questions. It was just everything happened when it happened. There was no warning for anything. So obviously the C-section happened. That really went fine. There was nothing like scary or anything that happened. That kind of went smoothly. My baby was delivered fine. He was born at 2 o'clock that afternoon, weighing £2.1, and he was, as far as things go, he was fine. He needed help breathing, but that's not abnormal for a baby that small. He got delivered. I got stitched up and I was sent on my way back to the ward. I did have a private room, so on the ward that I was on, it's not like a ward you'd see in like a general hospital, like where there's loads of people all in one sort of bay. It was like a special room because obviously I'd just gone surgery. So in that room, like, my baby wasn't with me, he was on neonatal. I didn't see him for 2 days because I'd obviously had a major operation and I myself wasn't well. Like, in your head you think I'm fine, but it must have really took it out of me for me to be in bed for that long. I just remember being in and out of it. Basically, I had a few visitors. Like, I remember seeing people, but like as soon as they'd go, I'd be asleep. Like, I'd sleep all the time, but I'd be monitored as well. So as I was asleep, I'd have bloods taken. I just remember sleeping through it because I'd were that used to having that many needles put in me and bloods taken and being monitored and everything that I was just used to it. My partner did actually go and spend the majority of the time with his baby. Like, he was amazing to go from me and him and look after us both, because obviously in one way he was scared about me, but then in the other way baby is just being born, so you have to like balance between the two, and I think that's harder because you want to be there for both, but obviously you can't, so you have to split it. Well, I think most of the time I was asleep, he couldn't do anything, so he just went and sat with Leo. And it was brilliant. Like, I remember he'd update me all the time. Like, he'd take loads of pictures when he'd do something, and it sounds daft for somebody like a 2-day-old baby could do something, but I think he shocked us every day with the things that he did. Like, nobody expected him to, like, I don't think he was on a breathing ventilator for that long. I think he came off it, and I think he shocked everybody, including nurses. Like, I think the thing that we've come to realise now, there was nothing actually wrong with him. He was just small. Like, he could do everything, and he did do everything, and he was just small. So the sort of recovery time after that, I was in hospital for 2 days. I think I came out on the Tuesday and I had the baby on the Sunday. I think I stayed in a lot longer than I did because I had preeclampsia, so they wanted to make sure that that was gone. Like, I had to have pain medication every day, and I was on a drip, but I don't know what that. I think that was obviously just to flush everything out, because obviously it's a fluid and stuff like that. So I was on a drip, and I don't think that stopped until, I think it was either the night before I came home or the day, like the morning, because I didn't go home all about tea time that next day. So I don't think anything really happened in regards to taking like my cannula out or anything like that until the day I came home. But I was moved to the proper ward on the Monday night, and I came home on the Tuesday, so I was only on there for one night, which wasn't bad. But at the same time, it was quite upsetting because I wasn't with my baby, and obviously when you're on the ward, the people that's had the baby normally is allowed to have their baby next to them, so that they obviously feed them and change them and do everything like a normal birth would do. But it was quite upsetting for me and my partner because we just had a baby that we weren't allowed to touch or do anything. It's really upsetting because it doesn't seem like it because they're okay in the here, but when you're seeing somebody who's just had a baby and everything's gone smoothly and everything's normal, like it does upset you. I don't really know what else there is to say. I mean, my recovery time for the C-section wasn't long, but I think as well it wasn't long because I didn't think about myself. So like, when you have a baby in neonatal, you know that you're constantly thinking about them. Like, you don't really think about yourself. Like, as soon as I got home, like, because the hospital was like a 40-minute drive away because of where we moved to, and it was draining because you'd come home, but you'd come home really late, and then as soon as you got up the next day, you wanted to go. So like, there was no time to yourself, no time to think, oh, I've just had a C-section. Like, I just got on with things, and I didn't moan because the grand scheme of things, I was lucky, and we were lucky to have his baby, and he'd be fine in the grand scheme of things. Like, he was fine. So I was mobile pretty much the day I came home. I was walking upstairs. I remember sleeping was quite hard because I couldn't sort of move. So like, if I was laid down, because obviously you use your muscles to turn, I couldn't really do that. So I struggled. Like, it was painful, but it was manageable. Like, I think I took like a couple of ibuprofen before I went to sleep, and that was it. Like, I was fine. But I remember on the second night I was home, I was in a lot of pain. I don't know why. It didn't last for very long. It was more like in the transition time of you getting to sleep. Like, it was just a lot of pain, so I had to kind of prop myself up that night. But other than that, like, I don't remember anything being really bad. Like, I was walking, it got painful after a while, but as you can imagine, you've just had a surgery, so it's going to be like uncomfortable. So like, for the most of the time I'd walk, and then when I struggled I'd have a wheelchair and somebody push me. And that happened basically until I was comfortable to walk a long way, like, on my own. I mean, I had injections that I brought home with me that I had to take for 7 days. Basically something my partner just injected into my arm. And other than that, there's no other things about recovery. Like, I had to check up just to make sure my scar was healing fine, make sure there was no infections, but that's just normal. I went to the hospital, obviously because I was already at the hospital checking on my baby. Every day that he was at that hospital, I went up to the ward to be checked myself, just so that I could go home, but because I was there every day anyway, they could keep an eye on me, but I could still be at home, like, without being in a hospital, which is just better for me because I hate hospitals as well. So they kept an eye on me there. Like, they take my blood, they check my blood pressure, and they take a urine sample every time I went to the ward. So it was like once a day, and if anything was wrong, they'd give me treatment, but there wasn't, so it was fine. And yeah, so we was just at the hospital at that point. We stayed at that hospital for a week, and then we got moved back to where I live. But that's all I'm really going to say, just purely because I'm going to make another video on what it's like to have a baby neonatal. There is a lot to that because he was in there for 10 weeks, so he was born on in August 25th on the Sunday, and we didn't leave until October 29th, so it was in there, I think, just short of 10 weeks. I think it was like 4 days off 10 weeks, so it doesn't seem like a long time, but when you're in there, it is a long time. Like, now looking back, it feels like it's never happened, and he just was always here, but at that time it was really overwhelming. So I'm gonna make another video because when I was going through it, I never really was able to go onto YouTube or go and speak to somebody and be like, this is what it was like to be in a neonatal unit and be a parent and go through everything, because it's a mix of emotions. Like, you go up and down with progress and stuff like that, and I think that knocks you back more than anything because you get so excited because you've got somewhere and then they go back, and that's part of it. So I will explain a lot more in the video, which I am going to make pretty much after this, and it will be uploaded within the same week. I was gonna have a break in between, and I was gonna put another video. So like, I'm gonna upload Wednesdays and Sundays. So I was gonna have this video on the Wednesday, and the other video on Sunday, and then the Wednesday after post this. But I think I'm just gonna do it on a Wednesday and a Sunday, so they kind of follow on from each other, because I think people will find this quite interesting and helpful as well, because like I said, I didn't have anything to watch and I didn't have anybody sit there and sort of not explain, because every baby is different, but I never had that advice and comfort to be like, you can get through it and this is what to expect. I mean, as much as your baby's different, I presume that every neonatal is pretty much the same in the sense of what you go through. But yeah, I think that's everything. So I am going to film the other video now, just so I can remember everything, and while I've got notes with me, I can just read it and follow on. But if there is any questions on anything that I've talked about today, like even just personal questions that you've gone through or you're going to go through and you're scared or anything like that, I can try and answer them best I can. I mean, I have gone through it, so I have a bit of insight to it. I mean, I'm not an expert, so obviously the things that you are concerned about that I couldn't answer, you best off going to like a doctor or a midwife or anything like that. But anything that I've talked about that you've got any questions on, I'd be happy to answer, because I know that I didn't have that, and I'd rather, if it's just me who can answer things, I'd rather that, and somebody have that peace of mind to be like, oh, somebody's gone through this and somebody can help. So yeah, I'm gonna stop this video now, and then I'm gonna film the what it's like to have a baby neonatal. So I will see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.